please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now? Today we're going to be taking a look at the year of 2024 for the streamer extraordinaire, Nick Rekietas, who has seen quite the downfall throughout the year. He might say triumphant, and I'm sure many of his fans will say the same. That isn't necessarily the case. What we're going to do is play the videos, or more important parts of the videos I have already done this year on him, and then catch up with the rest of his year shortly after.
With that, as stated, I will not be talking about my case. I will be resuming content focused on the same things we always focus on. That content will be absent any alcohol or anything else. That content will be jovial and lighthearted most of the time. Except maybe if I'm in a bad mood. Because guess what, guys? You've always gotten me. Not a performative thing, not some mask, not some persona. You get me.
On this channel I've done a few shorts talking about the arrest of Nick Rekietas, the law YouTuber guy, and some of the concerns raised by many in the online space when it concerns certain narcotics like sherbet being in the home where his children also reside. Recently Nick made a triumphant return to YouTube, and he made a few comments of interest towards the government, towards legal officials who he named where he should not have named them. Around this time, a document was released into the online space, and Nick Rekietas has basically confirmed the existence of this document. Whether or not it's truthful or not, it is a bit open to interpretation, because he doesn't outright state that it is truthful what it says within the document, only that the document exists, right? And I thought, first of all, I'll play that clip of Nick confirming this before we go through parts of that document that are relevant to other comments Nick has made.
We're just going to do this. I'm going to talk for a minute, very briefly, and then we'll, I'm going to read the chats, and then we'll go. This is not going to be a long stream. It was going to be a much longer stream, but first, the release of information that's supposed to be protected at a very specific time, right after I announce a show and right before the show starts, is something that is concerning. And of course, I will have a lawyer looking into that right away.
I have seen many within the YouTube space and Twitter space debating whether or not this means he is verifying that what is said in the document is truthful or not. If you're Nick Rekietas at the moment, it's not a good time. The response typically to those that are detractors has been to call you a bootlicker for the police and government shills, whilst simultaneously attacking the police and the government and legal officials.
Do not.
When his legal counsel, if they were smart, would be advising against it. What is held within the document that's been released is something you don't want to ever see, because if true, there's no coming back. And anyone that supports Nick Rekietas, if this is true, is a moron. Again, I say if, because it needs to be confirmed first. There are some that believe this is all too sus, and therefore it is not, cannot be, truthful in the slightest. I want it to be false, because I do not want sherbet and children to be anywhere near each other. Regardless of the context, the answer is always a negatory.
But I'll deal with it. Because unlike groveling, sniveling commentators online who've never had to deal with any actual adversity in their lives, that's what you do.
In Nick's stream, titled Time to Get Back to Work ... Let's Chat, which runs for 86 minutes 55 seconds, he spends a lot of time touting what could be regarded as a bit of a conspiracy theory that the government has it in for him. That is why this is all snowballing the way it is, because conspiracy, and it comes across as such. So when he starts to push wider messages of how to handle government, I can fully understand those kind of messages in the context of what you're getting a considerable amount of blowback for. The like to dislike of the stream certainly lends credence to that, as does your own live chat from that stream telling you to hand yourself in because you're a criminal, and the comments underneath.
But right now, We have Constitution to worry about. My personal liberty is what I'm concerned with. The welfare and well-being of my family, despite the little memes about it, has always been and will always be my top priority. Anyone suggesting otherwise? Well, I don't want to violate YouTube's rules about encouraging self-harm.
There is not much in the way of public perception where you're going to look good, so you need to really dig deep. In one particular area where you believe there's some validity, whether there is any validity or not, we cannot say until the process has been completed. So yes, I do respect the system. Innocence until proven guilty, right?
Fight for your rights. You have them. They exist for a reason, including your right to free speech.
The document that has since been released is 11 pages long, 10 if you take out the end part that's not really relevant in the slightest. To page 1. The above entitled matter came before the undersigned Judge of District Court on June the 6th, 2024 at the Place County Courthouse, Wilmar, Minnesota. Present at the hearing were the following. List of people, including foster parents. All parties participants appeared in person at the beginning of the Joint Emergency Protective Care hearing and admit-deny hearing. The court met the requirement for hearing procedure outlined in law. Subject matter concerns the 5 children. Obviously for this video we don't need to see that part referencing their names, date of births. Not relevant in the slightest for us anyway. Parentage: Kayla Rekietas, mother of the minor children, Nicholas, the father of the minor children. They are married, they share joint legal and physical custody of the children. Petition: a CHIPS petition was filed on the 24th of May 2024. The alleged statutory grounds listed in the CHIPS petition are incorporated herein by reference. The court previously found the petition establishes a, I don't know this word, do forgive me, prima facie, showing that a juvenile protection matter exists and the children are the subject of that matter. The court previously found the petition establishes a, that word again, showing that the children's health, safety or welfare would be immediately endangered if the children were released to the care of the parents. 7 is a little bit blurred, but I think I can make it out. Service: Mr. Rekietas, Ms. Rekietas were each personally served with the summons and petition on the 28th of May 2024. No motion to intervene were made. The ICWA, the protections of the Indian Child Welfare Act, do not apply to this case. The next part references McKenna's law, which also references children by name. Of course, we've removed that. Representation: the parents were previously advised of the right to be represented by the counsel on the record as required by Rule 36, and the parents were each represented by an attorney at this hearing. Ex parte hold and order of hearing. The children were placed on a law enforcement hold. The date of removal is the 23rd of May 2024. The facts that warranted the removal of the children from the caregiver on an ex parte emergency basis are as following. On the 23rd of May 2024, law enforcement officers from that Place County Sheriff's Office executed a search warrant at the family residence. During the search, narcotics and drug paraphernalia were located. The parents were placed under arrest and the law enforcement officers placed the children on a law enforcement hold. Continued EPC hearing. An emergency protective care hearing was scheduled to be held on May the 28th, 2024. Where's the why? At that time, the parents motioned to continue the hearing for good cause. The court found good cause to continue the EPC hearing to protect the rights of the parties. Testimony. The court received testimony from Ellishka, is that what that says? Sweep, Christy Barber, and Robert Rekietas. All witnesses were placed under oath prior to providing testimony. Exhibits. The court received the following exhibits. 1. Drug testing of the parents. 2. Drug testing of the children. That's interesting. Protective care determination. All parties and participants were offered the opportunity to cross-examine petitioner regarding the ex parte filings. After receiving additional facts, the court determined that protective care shall continue. The court makes the following explicit and individualized findings in support of continued placement. A. KCHHS received a report following Mr. Rekietas and Ms. Rekietas on May 23, 2024. The report was that law enforcement was going to the home of Mr. Rekietas and Ms. Rekietas to execute a search warrant. B. Upon executing the search warrant, the law enforcement officers found over 26 grams of sherbet, horse trank, other stuff, pew-pews, and ammu for the pew-pews in the house. C. Ms. Sweep, Ellishka I believe, if that's what it says up top there, went to the family home while the search was going on. At the time she learned that the home was very cluttered. It was difficult to walk around the home without stepping on clothing, bedding or blankets. The children were present at the home when Ms. Sweep arrived. One of them was not present. D. After being placed out of the house, the children were subject to hair follicle drug testing. All except one tested negative. One tested positive for sherbet at a level over 5,000 with a cutoff of 500. Mr. and Ms. Rekietas submitted to a hair follicle drug test through Minnesota Monitoring Inc. on the 30th of May 2024. The results of those tests have not been received yet. Mr. Rekietas and Ms. Rekietas revoked their releases of information from MMI to KCHHS. Because the ROIs have been revoked, KCHHS has been unable to monitor the parents through additional testing. F. Ms. Sweep went to the home on the 28th of May. She was allowed into the home but was not allowed access to the parents' bedroom. G. The GAL is in agreement that it is in the best interests of the children to remain out of home placement at this time. That point about one of the children via hair follicle testing having sherbet in their system over 5,000 with a cutoff of 500. This is the part where people really have latched on, and understandably so. I know that when I had covered in like This Week at Twitter and in Shorts, some people on social media were like, oh yes, but the children aren't going up to it to use it, are they? So there's nothing wrong with the parents having it. Actually, there's everything wrong with the parents having this. My view has always remained the same when it comes to a parent having a child. The moment you have one, your life is over. Your life ends until that child leaves the home and they start their life. That's my view on it. Any parent reckless enough to leave firearms laying around, ammunition laying around, or drugs laying around, or paraphernalia for those drugs laying around, is a bad parent. Insert all your obligatory excuses here to try and simp to white knight to defend, but my point still stands. No one should be doing that. I'm intrigued by the revoking rights part, or access to further testing. That intrigues me. But we also have allegedly additional context from people going to the home and noting what a mess it was. You need to lead by example, Nick, and your wife, for your children. You, when you started up your stream again, spoke about how important your family was to you. Clearly that was not the case, allegedly, because you need some kind of shock to the system to learn the lesson. Any parent that requires that level of shock to their system to be better has already started off as a weak parent to begin with. Those children are going to remember this as well, by the way, and you should be ashamed of yourself for that.
Again, what's so shocking to me are all the lawyers who suddenly forgot that you can't talk about criminal case. They'll tell you, they'll say it. They'll say it on Twitter and stuff. They'll be like, oh, Nick shouldn't be talking. When I tell a joke about cops talking about my house, like, and labeled, this is clearly a joke. They're like, oh my God, Nick shouldn't say that. Ugh.
Nick, according to this paperwork, you refused to get a drug test, your wife included, to prove you were clean so you could in turn get your children back, or help get your children back. So it doesn't really matter what the jokes are coming from LawTube or other lawyers. Ultimately, they've busted you with one simple comment in an alleged official piece of paperwork. And your response is seen by many as a massive deflection from this, all under the convenient guise of, but I can't talk about this right now. You pretty much confirmed its existence. The truth of it is a different matter, but the existence part you did when you confirmed it was released, a document was released, just as you were firing up a stream, or just before if you want to be pedantic. Pointlessly, I might add. Now there is more in this document we should probably go through. 17. Surroundings or conditions. The children are in surroundings or conditions that endanger the children's health, safety or welfare, requiring responsibility for the children's care and custody to be immediately assumed by the KCHHS. 18. Contrary to welfare and best interests, children out of home. It is in the best interests of the children for care, custody and control of the children to remain with KCHHS for the purpose of placement with a suitable foster care provider. Continued custody of the children by the parents is contrary to the welfare of the children. The placement confirmed by the KCHHS is in the children's best interest. In making this finding, the court relies upon the best interest factors considered by the KCHHS as set forth in the CHIPS petition, which are incorporated herein by reference. It is in the best interests of the children to remain in foster care until the parents are able to provide a safe environment demonstrated through substantial compliance with the case plan and by correcting the conditions which have led to out-of-home placement. The placement proposed by the agency is the least restrictive and most home-like setting that meets the needs of the children. 19. Reasonable efforts. Given the particular circumstances of the children and family at the time of children's removals, there were no services or efforts available that could have allowed the children to safely remain in the home. I'm just going to insert another obligatory. If any of this is true, you do realise how shitty this makes you look, right, Nick? I mean, you have to. You can call people bootlickers, government simps, you can go and deflect in that ballpark if you like. But if this is proven true, or any of it is true, this is horrific. And you can't have your children because your home isn't safe for them, because of the narcotics, paraphernalia, and the random pew-pew crap you left laying around. Have you ever heard of a locker? And as far as the drugs go, they should never be in the house to begin with. You shouldn't be taking them. 20. KCHHS is providing reasonable efforts to reunify the children with their parents and to prevent the need for further out-of-home placement. However, those efforts have been hampered by the parents because the parents have revoked ROIs, have not been submitting to drug testing, and have not allowed KCHHS full access to the home. This one baffles me a bit. I understand the individual rights and freedoms, but when it comes to your children, a good parent would do anything they can to get their children back. If you failed the drug testing, I understand there is a risk in that, which is more than likely what this comes across as, again, allegedly. However, you making consistent, concerted efforts to change and improve will help you, Nick and Ms. Rekietas. 21. Removal date and permanency deadlines. The children were removed from the home on the 23rd of May. The permanency progress review hearing must be held no later than 180 days after, which is November the 19th, 2024. If applicable, the permanency petition must be filed no later than 335 days after, which is April 23rd, 2025. An admit-deny hearing was held on the 6th of June, which is 22 by the way. The parents, each represented by an attorney. The parents were advised of the right to have a trial regarding the CHIPS petition, including the right to testify or question and call witnesses at the trial, and to require petitioner to prove its CHIPS petition by clear and convincing evidence. The parents entered a denial. We're going to skip over this little part here, conclusions of law, and go down to order. 1. The children shall remain in the protective care for the purpose of placement with an appropriate licensed foster care provider. 2. Services, examinations, or evaluations. The following shall be provided to the child and the child's family pursuant to Rule 42-09. The parents shall each submit to a chemical use assessment and shall follow all recommendations. The parents shall abstain from the use and possession of all mood-altering substances except as prescribed by a medical professional. C. The parents shall each submit to chemical testing of any type at the request of the KCHHS and or the GAL to verify abstinence. This would explain why in his stream he has no intention of using it, which does lend credence to this being verified. D. The parents shall sign all necessary releases of information so that the service providers may share information with KCHHS and GAL. E. The parents shall sign releases of information from MMI to KCHHS and the GAL so that KCHHS and the GAL may monitor and verify the parents' drug testing results. At least before they get visitation, supervised, but they get some, right? I'm not trying to say that this is all but verified with these little parts here, but Nick's earlier comments about abstaining or not having anything around him that could in any way ruin the show, like alcohol.
As stated, I will not be talking about my case. I will be resuming content focused on the same things we always focus on. That content will be absent any alcohol or anything else.
This does seem to lend credence to this being verifiable now, but that's just an interpretation. Of course, I'm not going to state it as fact, just how it can be perceived. As far as I'm concerned, if this is true, you shouldn't have your children back ever. I don't care how many chances you think you should have. I hold very strict views when it comes to children and their welfare and their safety, and parents ultimately only get one chance. But I'm not a parent, so what do I know? Shoot me down, my opinion means nothing. Like I care. You are a terrible person, Nick, and you should be ashamed of yourself for getting into this hole.
Do not allow anyone to convince you that you should grovel before government or just accept an outcome. Don't do it.
So some of the things that happened since that video dropped. As many know, one of his children had tested positive at that time, allegedly, for COCAINE, or sherbet as I normally call it. Now, on Kiwi Farms, there is a thread dedicated to Rekieta. Not a lolcow though, right? Okay. And Null, Joshua Moon, have posted, he messaged me out of the blue to say 2 things. 1, to thank me for locking his thread. 2, to deny that his child tested positive for sherbet. He claims the test is faulty, is testing a metabolite which exists outside of the body, and also that the level of sherbet they are suggesting she had in her would indicate she would be unalive. I should point out, shortly after this, the thread was made public again once the document was confirmed to be true. The reason the thread was locked was to confirm the truthfulness, the validity of the document confirming the sherbet. Okay, that is important context. Rekieta has agreed at this point to certain conditions set by the court. This included submitting to testing. He was reluctant to at first. When he was streaming, it didn't help because he looked like he was continuing to spiral. Now, as far as bridges go, virtually all bridges that Nick Rekieta had eroded themselves completely to the point of no return by the end of October 2024. On Twitter, he got increasingly aggressive with everyone. That's not to say he wasn't before, but because he's under the microscope, his ability to show any semblance of patience has gone out of the window, which isn't, again, necessarily a bad thing. It makes him more entertaining, certainly when people are cataloguing what he's been up to over the past 6 to 7 months since agreeing to terms. The amusing thing about what happened when the child was tested, at this point allegedly, with the farms then locking things down briefly, is that Nick Rekieta tried desperately to obfuscate, to distract and deflect, essentially trying to make the situation seem like it was nowhere near as serious, and that truth will prevail. He was asserting it at this point, because at no point did he provide anything that would indicate that he had a winning hand. Essentially, he was up against a guy with a royal flush, with a pair of 2s. Now, on the face of it, that might seem a tad extreme. Well, this is the part where we now go to a Twitter handle called Rekietas. On the 25th of October, they tweeted out that Rekieta Law submitted an appeal against his failed motion to dismiss, because that's what he's been trying to do. He once again challenges the probable cause and reattempts his Frank's hearing request. They include all pages of that because Rekieta is desperately trying to get this thrown out, so that truth will prevail by dismissing it. This seemed like an odd thing to do, by the way, because Nick had repeatedly said multiple times that the truth will prevail. What truth is there, Nick, if you simply have the case dismissed? What truth is that? You're arguing the probable cause part. Okay, you failed the first time, though. You must be rolling in the money to be able to keep doing these wasteful appeals, rather than simply ride this out. Now, the main crux of the argument that was dismissed the first time is that the Kandiyohi, the KCSO, which is the police, opened the investigation, got a search warrant, willfully, knowingly deceived and misled the signing judge through an application for a search warrant. That is the main crux of this problem. So, just the thing, I understand that the process should be followed fully, 100%. The appeal was rejected once. You are resubmitting to get this through a second time. I've stated you have complained about the truth needing to be out there because people don't know it. All they have is you asserting things. Your way of dealing with this now is not to go down the telling the truth part, but to simply hyper-focus on the process that's already been rejected by a judge once already when you tried to appeal the probable cause aspect of it. Misa thinking you're looking for straws to clutch. Betcha.
The government has a problem in my case, and that is that they cannot show any evidence of drug use. And you'll find it absent in any of the documents. That's on the government. If they decide they need to show that, then they will attempt to show it.
The clip's going to seem a bit out of time because the court documents from the end of October, that clip is from the end of June. Something seems wrong here, doesn't it? Because July, August, September, 4 months. Nick, this is drawn out, dragged out, continued for 4 months. And when you've tried to have it dismissed, Judge said, computer says nah. I should also insert, it was at the beginning of July 2024 that articles started circulating confirming that when one of the children was tested, they tested positive for sherbet. So things didn't look good for Nick at that point, which was why the children were taken away. Now, as the year progresses and Nick starts to quite visibly deteriorate, he starts to believe that somebody is A-logging everything, including all his blasphemous statements. You know, like the rather nasty ABUSC he puts out on Twitter all the time. They then sent it to a pastor to report his sherbet use to the Popo. Got a clip of that.
Someone compiled stuff I said about Jesus out of context and sent it to the pastor who reported us. So the pastor's report is influenced by out of context quotes I made about Jesus, which are quotes not of authority, because I'm not an authority on the Bible at all. I'm just a guy who likes to read and think when I have time. And so the exploration of the text was me doing textual criticism. Doing textual criticism of various parts of the Bible because I find it interesting. And then being a little cheeky about Jesus' divinity, which I actually believe in, never didn't. But I think I'm going to get into theology, and it's going to go to hell.
Now, I earlier stated that Nick had burnt a number of bridges within the online space. Some of those bridges within the very community he was a part of, the LawTube aspect. You may have noticed with the screen recording earlier when I was scrolling through his tweets, a lot of them were a retweet of one person called Sean. Well, it turns out his nerd rage, nerdgasming, out of control there, extends to his very softly spoken approach on stream, where everything is open to being dunked on because he's Nick Rekieta and he's untouchable. Now, as far as their back and forth go, I think the only way to resolve it is with a game of magic, because, sorry Nick, you're not allowed to box when there's certain narcotics in your system. Not that any of them give you an advantage.
Can you imagine that 700-pound oaf? If you ever listen to one of his boring-ass streams, he sits there, he's like, we got a 16 grams of Bolivian blow. He'll, like, say these expressions that he's either made up or stolen from some book, and he acts like he's cool, like, you know, he's done all this stuff, and he's got this experience, he's a criminal defense attorney, but it's like, no, look at him, he's just a model-painting fat nerd, which is fine. It's probably who you want defending you, honestly. You probably don't want me. I'll probably ruin something for you, but he's fine with that. But stop trying to, like, pretend to be cool.
Thing here, Nick. You've been mocked to high hell from the likes of Brianna Wu of all people. They themselves, a vaunted lolcow, a pinata of old. You have replaced Brianna Wu to the point Brianna Wu now can mock you when it comes to legal representation. Mostly because everything about your personal life is now known. And because of that, you are not just an open book, but your reputation is like a mug that's hit the floor far too many times. It's not just cracked anymore. It's now incapable of holding anything of substance. Unless it's a very small amount of substance, cut really thin. Yeah. 2024 has not been a good year for Nick Rekieta. It really hasn't. But Nick Rekieta will try and make it seem like it is. One of my favourite creators to watch when they have covered Nick Rekieta is Cog. Cog has covered everything. And the reason why is because the level of delusion is worthy of mockery. Whether Nick Rekieta is able to get his kids back properly, fully, and get his life back on track, I couldn't say. But based on his behaviour, I'm not inclined to believe he deserves to. He keeps claiming the truth, yet everything he is doing legally is to bury it. He wants to control the narrative and the message, which apparently his peers disagree with. I wonder why.
'Cause that's weird. You're not cool. We can all see you. But he does that. And then all of a sudden he's like, Nick, you got caught with blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like, I'm sorry. How does that affect you? Please tell me more about it. All these little bitches sitting there whining and crying at me.
Now, when it comes to Nick Rekietas, there are a number of things going on. Whether it be his marriage, his bit on the side, his legal license, or the fact his hands shake like there's no tomorrow, which you can infer many things from. I'll play that clip so you can make your own assumptions.
Alright. So, here we go. We got a little stupid presentation on this, but I'm leaving you can pour some gravy over the top if you want, but I'm leaving it out because of the crunchiness of the steak. But yeah, so
the one consistent thing you get from Nick Rekietas is everything is some kind of op. If you find out something about him, no, it's not real, it's an op. If someone goes on Twitter to disavow him that knew him, it's an op. If they reveal stuff about him, don't worry guys, you've guessed it. Even if it's true, it's all a part of the master plan. On November the 9th, it was tweeted out that Nick Rekietas might be going down the scorched earth path by renewing his law license. Included is confirmation of authorization to practice law. Congratulations. I'm actually somewhat surprised at this point that Nick Rekietas bothers to do this because his reputation is quite low down. But can't hate the player for having an actual job. Breaking Baldo, who I'm quite fond of for some of their parody takes on Nick Rekietas and also a lot of the court documents we have seen, tweeted, "It is evident that Nick Rekietas and April Law are only being kept apart by Kayla Rekietas. April on Twitter, April Anderson, is devout when it comes to standing up for Nick Rekietas. She appears to be the only person who has any semblance of respect for the institution of marriage. We're calling it now. At the end of this trial, Nick will elope with April, who many have dubbed the newer model. I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Rekietas' marriage went down the drain, and then continued to descend further down into the madness once this had all settled, if it settles at all. When you make a reputation, a career, a name off of trying to be the nuclear family guy, trying to control the narrative through legal means, trying to suppress what can be truth and what is not because you don't want the truth to be out there, all the while partaking in infidelity and heavy usage of narcotics, so much so it was left around your children, chances are the crappy individual you are will eventually find its way to the surface because you have no moral consistency. You might try and espouse religious beliefs, but in reality you're dumping on those and using them as a scapegoat at the same time. The story of Nick Rekietas' more recent career, aptly summarized as hypocrisy. Not that he'll ever admit it, he will instead tell you you've fallen for another op, all the while constantly bleating on Twitter about people crapping on him. He is the TikTok video reply person in Twitter form, where any negative comment he receives he has to retweet to either be less than polite, which seems to run counter, all the while trying to push off the image that he's anything but a hypocrite. Hello everyone, it's Future Meg here. I do apologise for this, but I make these videos typically in November and hedge my bets and invariably have to re-upload with additional information. In this case, there is something we need to add concerning a more recent revelation, legal matters as it were, and I made a video on it, so I'm going to play that here. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Nick Rekietas. The reason why is because on the 26th of November, Breaking Baldo News, who Nick Rekietas loves oh so much, not a joke, he doesn't totally retweet them quite a lot, had tweeted at 14:15 Central Standard Time, Nick Rekietas will attend a settlement conference to enter a plea for charges of felony second-degree drug possession and gross misdemeanor illicit firearms and child neglect. Guilty or not guilty, time to choose. 4 replies I thought I'd share with you. Legal Seagull, Rekietas is a weak drug-addicted fool. He doesn't have what it takes to win a court case. He's going to take whatever plea they give him. Now this is interesting because it's a stark contrast to his big balls brave attitude on Twitter, where he's very aggressive to anyone that criticises him. If there are enough followers, he will go in on you if he has the chance. My view was that perhaps he would take a guilty plea deal because it made more sense, but I had heard rumblings of a continuance. We'll get to that soon. Second reply, take it to trial, Nick. Third, he's way too intimidated to go to trial. And finally, if I had to guess, I'd say he's going to plead guilty and take whatever deal he can get. I assume he wants the neglect thing dropped in exchange for a guilty plea on the drugs, but I doubt they'll go for it. In the end, he'll take the deal. I felt a guilty plea would make sense, but as I mentioned, continuance, I should probably mention what that is. It's essentially a legal way of stalling, adjourning legal proceedings for a future date essentially. Yeah, either because more investigations need to be concluded or because the sentencing couldn't happen at the same time and the guilty plea had in fact been accepted and it just needs time to, settle, as it were. But since there's been no mention on Nick Rekietas' Twitter at time of recording, I don't know if that's what he did. Now, another thing of note that we should share is that Leila Rekietas, her brief to challenge probable cause, was released. It's 8 pages, and I thought, ooh, let's have a look at that before we get to what happened, or what I believe happened, yesterday with a video clip. It's 8 pages, so sit down. It's going to be an interesting one. So to page 1. To the above-named court, the state and their attorney, this matter came before the court for contested omnibus hearing on the 28th of October 2024 at that courthouse. Yes, I still don't know how to pronounce it and I can't be asked to learn because I'm lazy. Facts. On the 22nd of May 2024, Deputy Quinn Pomplin, with the Sheriff's Office, applied for and obtained a warrant to search defendant Leila Rekietas' home, which she shares with her husband, Nick Rekietas, and their 5 children. In addition, the warrant granted the Sheriff's Office the ability to search Nicholas's person. The allegations contained in the application for search warrant were as follows. These, by the way, are my favourite parts. 1. An unidentified reporter heard the following rumours about Rekietas, the Rekietas even, from other people in their church. A to H a special. A. There were concerns about neglect, possible controlled substance use, and a questionable relationship with an additional couple, the Imholts, who are also married. B. The Imholts may have been staying with the Rekietas. C. The home was in disarray and cluttered. D. The children were hungry, not fed, wearing clothing multiple days in a row and started smelling. E. Nicholas appeared lethargic, high, or drugged while driving a car around. F. Nicholas walked out randomly on sermons and was exhibiting behavioural changes. G. Leila looks anorexic and Nicholas has recently lost weight. H. Nicholas had injection or track marks on his arms. Now some of these can be dismissed to an extent. Home being in disarray and cluttered, quite common for many people who aren't proud of their houses, or take too much for granted perhaps, or simply aren't good enough to have a nice tidy home. The looking anorexic and losing weight thing could well be to a dietary change. I say could, it's a very important word, because H undoes it. The track marks are very important, aren't they? Now, 1, where it says, heard the following rumours about the Rekietas, rumours were substantiated by his livestream performances, some of which we'll get to soon because it's in here as well. 2, the application for search warrant was silent on whether the unidentified reporter was a person known to law enforcement. 3, the application for search warrant was silent on whether the unidentified reporter was a reliable source. Now, when we've been covering Nick Rekietas, something I felt quite important to observe was that it was less about proving innocence and more about prolonging the process to either get clean so when a drug test did happen, as an inevitability, he would be clean. Whereas at the time, it was done and there were problems. Didn't he have a monitor on him or something? He had restrictions. It was hilarious. His can-do, his willful, his ignorance were quite funny because it was cope. On Nick Rekietas' part, anyway. 4. The application for search warrant was silent on the source of the information that Nicholas and Leila are friends with the Imholts. And back to the point about this reliable source thing, it leans into the part where Nick Rekietas attempts to have this all dismissed, centered around the warrant itself, and less about proving innocence. Why? Because he's not innocent. He knows it, but the only way he can legally get rid of it is to get that warrant null and voided. Therefore, everything else is irrelevant because the initial undoes it. He knows the system. 5. Deputy Pomplin indicated that was personally familiar with the Aaron Imholt's social media. Wait, what? Are these written by a child? 6. The application for search warrant was silent on the source of the information that Nicholas is a social media blogger. Is that what he is? We're not going to go sensation, are we? I always thought of Nick Rekietas as at one point, legal commentary channel, now more politically charged and a bit slow channel. But social media blogger works, sure. 7. The application for search warrant was silent on the source of the information that Nicholas is known to drink alcohol excessively during video blogs. So, he's also known for other things. Sniff. Now, he may be known for excessive drinking during his video blogs. The problem with that is, he goes beyond the point of return to the point he is just useless. He is at that point a sack of bones in a skin shell sat on a chair, with these really unusual shakes. I wonder what they're from. 8. Deputy Pomplin viewed blogs created by Nicholas and Aaron and made the following observations. A. There was a change in Nicholas's appearance from January 2024 videos to the May 2024 videos, including that he appeared to have lost weight, appeared tired, and appeared strung out consistent with controlled substance users. B. Nicholas's studio was in the basement of his residence, like a good virgin. C. Aaron Imholt indicated that he and his wife were getting a divorce. Just to go back to B, yes, sarcasm, calm your tits and have a biscuit. D. Aaron Imholt indicated that he had experimented with drugs. E. The videos made it apparent that the Imholts and Rekietas were friends who recently had a falling out. F. In Aaron Imholt's videos, April appeared tired, lethargic, and strung out. G. Nicholas and Aaron appearing in the same room during the videos. On the 22nd of May, Aaron published a video blog insinuating that Nicholas was using controlled substances, that Nicholas needs to get help, and help for his children because of his substance use, and that there was a video where Nicholas had a white powdery substance on his nose. I can't show that in the video, by the way, but pictures of that are everywhere. There's a whole forum, in fact, dedicated to it. Well, much of what Nicholas does, in fact, a farm where the harvest has been quite bountiful for them. On May 21st, Nicholas put a video blog online that showed him drinking what appeared to be an alcoholic beverage, and in which he appeared to be under the influence of controlled substances. During the video, Nicholas leaves to use the bathroom and returns with a white powdery substance under his nose. This is what is referenced in H, by the way. The deputy, Pomplin, believed Nicholas was under the influence of a central nervous system stimulant. The deputy believed Nicholas ingested a substance through his nasal cavity off-screen. During the video, Nicholas appears to struggle to read the screen, he rambles and has slurred speech. Now, I have shown that on YouTube. The slurring of speech, the clearly compromised individual. He is a performer on screen. That is what his job is, right? He's an actor, everyone. But because he live streams, he is reliant very much on live viewers to chat. He needs donations to get by, but he was taking things he shouldn't be touching. I understand the stress is a lot for a social battery type person, but if you have so much that you can then go and do things like this, you've got too much. Or you need to learn to pick up a hobby that's less destructive. Why don't you do Warhammer? Painting models? Oh, you've got shaky hands, you can't do. J. There is no indication contained in the application for search warrant as to what time of day the video was created, whether the children were under Nicholas's care, or if there were any other adults in the home caring for the children at the time the video was created. See? Trying to get rid of that damn pesky search warrant thing, aren't they? 9. Deputy Pomplin alleges that Nicholas has been the victim of swatting, and that the sheriff's office had responded to said swatting calls. 10. Deputy Pomplin misstates his qualifications as a DRE, and that he claims to have training and experience in making evaluations of individuals with whom he has only viewed in video productions and not personally interacted. See, we're doing a bit of poisoning the well in here as well. It's quaint. Analysis. The US and Minnesota constitutions protect against unreasonable searches and seizures. Law enforcement may conduct a search and seizure upon securing a warrant that is supported by probable cause and issued by a neutral, detached magistrate. Since a lot of this warrant stuff has ended with nothing, you can safely say this hasn't gone very far. On the next page, the affidavit must be sufficiently detailed and include all the evidence law enforcement has that supports probable cause to believe that the items sought are at the location to be searched, and they must describe with particularity the things to be seized. Affidavits must not be conclusory, but should detail the underlying circumstances that support the affiant's belief that there is probable cause, citing Aguilar versus Texas in 1964. A. The information reported to law enforcement has no indicia, if that's how you pronounce that, I do apologise, of reliability. If I've mispronounced, I apologise even. The information in the affidavit can come from various sources, including eyewitness testimony, informants, or surveillance. However, for the warrant to be valid, the sources must be reliable. If an informant is used, the affidavit must usually demonstrate that the informant has previously provided reliable information, or that other independent sources corroborate their information. So not the thousands of people watching live because they're bots, everyone. NPCs, they're poor, they don't count. In our case, the affiant does not even bother to recite the source of much of the information. No mention is made of whether the information was from a reliable or unidentifiable informant. The reported disclosure does not reflect that the anonymous reporter possessed first-hand knowledge of the allegations. Moreover, the information reported was not corroborated by independent facts or verified through further investigation. In addition, The reported information is made even more suspect by the fact that Nicholas, as a well-known internet personality, has been a victim of recent swatting activity, likely initiated by Aaron Himholt. That is a dangerous accusation to make, because it's defamatory. You have to prove that part. You've written here, likely initiated as your get-out-of-jail-free card on that one. Do not assert in legal documents. It's not the smartest move. B. The facts alleged by the investigating deputy are conclusionary and based on pure speculation. I mean, the evidence that came out since kind of undoes that, but I get your point of nipping it at the start, therefore the rest is invalid. The fact that an internet celebrity... Sorry, I couldn't resist. May have appeared to have lost weight, appeared tired, and appeared strung out. A conclusory in nature and not factual. Actually, I watched some of those streams. He looked addled. He looked compromised in a way that I've only ever seen from a guy in San Francisco standing on his 2 feet yet his head is touching his knees. Not moving very much and a bit of a zombie. Oh, what's it called? Fenta, NyQuil? Something in that area. And yes, I've said it like that on purpose, thank you. Likewise, the allegation that April Imholt appeared tired, lethargic and strung out are mere conclusionary statements that fail to recite facts leading to such conclusions. For example, this is the age of prescription weight loss medication. Essentially, everyone is losing extraordinary amounts of weight in a short period of time. However, no independent investigation was done in that regard. There is no way Nick Rekietas was on freaking weight loss, drugs like Ozempic or semaglutide. If he was, he wouldn't have been able to stream, he would have thrown up. Man his size never needed it. That is such a reach. Nicholas also suffers from insomnia. I thought he was, narcoleptic. That was another, I think I'd seen that somewhere. Yet no independent investigation was done in that regard. This is a way of stringing everything out. The house was searched. If they found anything that was weight loss related, it would be in some kind of inventory as a list. No offense intended to Rekietas if you were on it, but I don't believe you were. The white powder under your nose, clearly just sherbet, gave you away. And since I know for a fact that semaglutide and Ozempic are syringe, there's no way you snorted it. If you did, your brain would kill you. In addition, the mere fact that Aaron Imholt posted a dubious video blog insinuating that Nicholas was using controlled substances does not make said blog factual, corroborating evidence. It is at best unreliable hearsay, lived experience. You're taking anecdotal evidence, which is what it is, yes, you're right, and you're trying to fob it off as unreliable hearsay, because of a falling out being the part where you justify that remark. Okay. C. The investigating deputy does not possess any training or experience in determining drug recognition, so DRE, via video production, and thus is not qualified to offer a reliable expert opinion. The expert opinion of the investigating DRE deputy must be discounted, as that opinion is based only upon the observations of the deputy while watching an internet video performance. Performance, you say? There exists no independent corroboration of any of the conclusions alleged by the deputy. There were no garbage pulls, no allegations from any person that there were drugs in the Rekietas home. Moreover, as a DRE, the deputy did not perform any testing on the defendant that would confirm his hunch. Even the testing that was nigh on impossible to do because of someone's individual rights. Yes, I'd heard about that. If the court is to follow the deputy's logic, the deputy could just as easily justify a search of Al Pacino's office on the set of Scarface. False equivalence, but there's a reason for that, because, well, we'll get to it soon actually, I'm not going to spoil it. The reason I highlighted performance and then Pacino's office, yes, there's another part to this. This, just to talk about it generally for a moment, is another way of using appeal to authority. It's another way of trying to get that warrant invalidated. Doing that ends everything, for him, apparently. From what I've seen, that is quite typical. Nick Rekietas on streams multiple times, and I covered it here, he multiple times indicated that he was in some way innocent, but he wasn't going to show anything. He wasn't going to tell you anything, because legal proceedings, totally respected. And now more information is coming out, and he's not trying to debunk anything. He's just trying to get rid of that search warrant, desperately. I'm impressed though, I really am. Conclusion. The most disturbing part of the search warrant that was granted in this case, and affirmed by multiple judges by the way, was the utter lack of evidence or allegation, credible or otherwise, that there were illegal substances located in the Rekietas home, much less where these drugs were located within the home. Controlled substance use is not illegal in Minnesota. Possession is illegal. There are no allegations contained in the application for search warrant that recite any first-hand knowledge of illegal substance being present in the home at the time of the application. We don't know the nature of the white powdery substance alleged to be present on Nick Rekietas' nose, nor does the deputy. It is just as plausible that it was sheetrock dust as an illegal substance. We don't know whether Nicholas was actually consuming alcohol, nor does the deputy. We can't field test a video, it's all speculation, conclusory statements, and guesses from people who have no first-hand knowledge of the home. Nicholas Rekietas is an internet personality, and in the single video, the only credible evidence contained in the application for search warrant, Nicholas Rekietas was engaged in an internet performance. It is a show for likes and hits. The more likes, comments, and hits the performance generates, the more income is generated. He is an actor. We all know we are not to believe what we see and hear on the internet. I see we're looking down on the internet in that respect. That's interesting. That's another poisoning the well thing. It's cute. But you think he's an actor? Bitch, he's not an actor. He is 100% a user of sherbet. We've seen enough of it over the years. Everyone's got first-hand experience of seeing somebody take it. We know the symptoms. We know the reactions. You even acknowledge track marks on his sodding arms, for God's sake. Don't try me. And don't try and tell me that's weight loss, because I know for a fact that goes into the abdomen. Alright? Don't try me with this bollocks. Alright? This is hilarious. So while looking at Twitter, after seeing that amazing piece of work, I noticed that a continuance has in fact happened. And we have a video of that from Stallion19, from Steel Towing.
Then we have, I was going to talk about this today, but there's not really much to talk about. It looked like the scorned lover, who seems to be still very much obsessed with the one that got away, Mr. Narc Injury himself, had his little settlement deal today. And something got up. Sounded like it was ready to go. Sounded like it was all signed, sealed, delivered. He was like, I'm about to do something that's against everything in my being. It's like, shut up, Bill Pullman, and Independence Day, and go plead to your drug problem, you
The segment where they talk about Nick Rekietas in this doesn't go for too long, but I do have to insert this because of fair use. And they do, and I tend to agree with them, apply Occam's razor to this in the future. So I'll play that clip before I say something else.
I mean, it's a lot of charges, and they're very serious charges, and you gotta figure out if they're going to agree or if they're going to pull it off the table. It's all kinds of shit that's probably going on. So I'm going to Occam's razor the damn thing, and I'm just going to say that the easiest explanation is probably the best one, and that he probably went in there fully ready to bend over, grab his ankles, and take the big judicial dick up the ass. But they just, a little tweak here and a little tweak there, and they'll get it. I'm sure they'll get it figured out in December. That's what I think.
Now, I do want to insert, this person doesn't think cats count as real pets when they talk about Ethan Ralph later on. I feel like that in and of itself is a separate video that I might do because it triggered me just enough. Cats are real pets. Well, we are their pets. If you don't agree with me, that's quite alright. Chances are you've been beaten by a cat far too many times. I agree with what has been said here, though, about the continuance, and then we will find out more in December, which is fine. I have a longer form video on Nick Rekietas planned for then anyway.